Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Living on Music. I'm Steve Houck, and again, so wonderful to have you here tonight with one of the more incredible guests. Everyone I have is incredible. What am I saying? But just an incredible guy, Cal Everett, joining me tonight. If you see behind me, you see the Fillmore in Silver Spring, where both Cal and I performed for the David Bowie tribute. And being a midlife cover band guy and playing with a lifelong musician like Cal and about 40 or 50 other people in his caliber, unbelievable experience. So I wanted to pop into the Fillmore tonight and feel Cal and feel all the wonder of his music and also that experience that I had with him. But tonight, Cal Everett joins me on Living on Music. We're going to take a long and wonderful ride of his illustrious musical career and his wonderful songwriting and his wonderful band forming, and also a little bit about his new album coming out, which we'll talk a little bit about with Todd Wright behind it, and also his Halloween book for kids that we will, Halloween is coming, that we'll talk about. So Cal Everett coming up very shortly. Real quick, Living on Music page, run over to it either now or right after the show. Join the our Living on Music group. We have close to 600 members. So exciting. I love people posting stuff on it all the time now and posting their own music gigs or musical clips or pictures or things about music. That's it. That's what it's about, folks, Living on Music. And also, if you get a chance, go to my Living on Music website. I've had it for a long time. It was really generated behind writing and interviews and things like that, and written interviews, and that's what's on there. I discovered Living on Music, the show, about 17 months ago. And so my Living on Music page has a host of incredible interviews that I've done over the years with some of the world's most fabulous musicians. So go to genres or write it in the search there you see, and I bet you'll find some musicians you really, really love. You can even ping me, message me on Living on Music with Steve Huck and say, have you interviewed so-and-so? Or I'd like to find them. We'll work together on it, because there's a lot of people on there that I've interviewed from around the world, and I'd love to have you check that out. Real quick, we're going to have Dave Chappell on in a week or two, talking about this gig that he does every year. And it got postponed, obviously, from last year, but it's back on track, back on the schedule at the incredible Birchmere. It is the Danny Gatton birthday tribute with just an incredible lineup of musicians. You see a bunch of them right there. I've had a few of them on the show, including Tommy Lepson, who's one of the region's most revered musicians. But Dave and I are going to talk about that soon and talk about this gig. And you'll want to go check out the incredible music of Danny Gatton. Again, I had the Birchmere on the show, Gary Olsey and Michael Jaworek, talking about some wonderful stories about Danny Gatton playing there. Some really, couple of funny ones, a couple of amazing ones. That Danny was a real part of the Birchmere for a long time. And Dave Chappell knew Danny. He helped Dave kind of create his guitar life. And I think you'll never forget a show like that. So go to thebirchmere.com and then become a part, September 3rd, of the Danny Gatton tribute.
As I mentioned a little bit earlier, behind me, yes, you see the Fillmore, one of the great venues in this area for a while. And 5 years ago, as I've mentioned many times on Living on Music, because so many of my guests have been Bandhouse gigs participants, but I had the absolute experience of a lifetime singing at a Bandhouse gigs tribute here at the Fillmore to David Bowie a few months after he passed away. And not only was it incredible to sing on a stage like this to sing alongside the most incredible musicians in this area that night. Well, for this midlife band cover guy, it was incredible. It was an epiphany. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And again, mainly because I got to not only sing on stage with people like the Sidleys, David Kitchen, Flo Anito, Gant Kushner, Chuck Sullivan, Mike Mills, but to be in the mix with another 30 amazing musicians in the whole development of the gig, the rehearsals at Chuck Sullivan's Bandhouse basement, amazing place. And there are all of those musicians who played on that show, including my guest tonight, the wondrous musical maven and a longtime DC area mainstay, Cal Everett. It was an incredible experience, and it's so great to have Cal on the show. Cal has done the young local band scene in the area. He has also had a band called 4 or 5 Doctors, which did very well, has reunited a few times in the 2000s, but made a real run back in the day in the mid to late 70s. And then after taking some time to regroup and reassess, he continued playing with other local musicians, recording music, forming his own bands, and we'll talk about those tonight. And also collaborating with the wonderful Todd Wright, who I had on about a month and a half or 2 months ago with his wondrous daughter, Ryan, another musician extraordinaire. Todd and Cal bonded and have been doing music together. We have a clip of them playing Jam and Java in a trio with Mark Williams, but also Todd was instrumental in nudging, pushing Cal to do his new record, which is going to be coming out in the next few months. And we're very excited to talk about that. You know, also over the last decade or so, it's really been people like Stilson Green, John Chapman, my buddy Surf Colwell, who have prompted Cal to become a part of the Loudoun County music scene, doing things like Acoustic in the Green every year, doing the Jingle Jam Band for fundraising for Juvenile Diabetes usually at the Tally Ho in Loudoun County. He also continues to appear in Bandhouse gigs and Newmyer Flyer events, continues to play with his Beach Boys national touring band, Still Surfin, a bunch of Beatles groups like Mostly Fab with Tom Lofgren, Todd Wright, Gary Smallwood, Chuck Sullivan, and his newest power trio, Calgary, Cal and Gary and Todd. With Gary Smallwood, and they were at the Cancer Can Rock benefit that I emceed and played some Beatles, and were just fabulous. So, he is very excited to not only have a new record in the wings, but after years of work too, and is prompted by his son, he has a Halloween kids book. Halloween is coming, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. A lot going on for this wonderful guy, full of creativity after decades of doing different things in the places and in the kind of things that he loves to do. This is one special guy, and I'm so excited to have him on tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm Living on Music welcome to Cal Everett.
Cal Everett,
hey,
how are you, man?
Very good.
So good to see you. I know we saw each other about a month and a half ago at the rainy yet fabulous Cancer Can Rock event up at 868 Vineyards, and it was so good to see you. Again, your presence to me, and that's why I told everybody why I put the Fillmore behind me. There's so many venues I've done over the course of the last 15 months on Living on Music, and they're either my association just personally, or with the guest, or just the guest. And this is kind of both of ours, although your Bandhouse gigs presence we're going to talk about, and it is spectacular. So fun to see you. Tell me a little bit about, again, there's a time when I won't have to ask guests on the Living on Music this question, but how are you coming through this last year, musically and personally with your wonderful family?
I've had a chance to talk to a lot of people about the situation. Obviously, like everybody else, the performance aspect of it completely disappeared, with the exception of, oddly enough, because I'm in that Still Surfin' Beach Boys tribute.
Yes.
Band, it's a lot of fun, and we travel all over. The only 3 gigs last year that did not get canceled were 3 Still Surfin' gigs, and they were all in the same week of August. One was on a Saturday, the next one was on a Thursday, and then the next one was on a Friday. They were all in the same week, and then we were done.
Oh my God, where were they?
Crazy. One was at a winery in near Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Oh my God.
One was at a Rehoboth Beach Country Club.
Yes.
Which was weird because it's like the kind of gig we never play.
Right.
It's a big tent party thing for country club types. It was like, oh, this is interesting. And then the first one, I think, was in Sugarloaf, New York.
Okay.
So we were in New York, New Jersey, Rehoboth, all in the same week, which was great because we hadn't rehearsed at all that year because we couldn't get together. One of the guys moved to North Carolina. Another guy has since moved to South Carolina. But it's, as Matthew Gross, the leader of the band, guy I've known now for 15 years, says, this band is in a position where all we do is turn the crank.
Yeah.
You know, just show up. Beach Boys aren't writing any new songs. So the 40 that we know, that's the ones we're going to play.
And that's the ones it would be. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
so the rest of the year, outside of that, the rest of the year was pretty docile, but honest to God, Wendy and I, we really just decided we have a grandchild now, and a second one on the way last year, was born in July, and my son had moved to Los Angeles. So we said, look, we're going to see our grandkids. So we flew, we did everything they told us to do, but we didn't let the situation ground us in any way. We traveled, we went to see our kids, we went to New York, played whatever gigs I could, which were the 3 Still Surfin gigs in August, and commenced in a way because Todd and I had been working on this epic project, the latest record that 6.5 years later is almost done.
That's exciting. Right.
It did give us a lot of time.
Right.
We have lots of time. We have the luxury of time. Don't have to work. We can do a lot of studio stuff. I can hone a lot of the things that we're doing in the studio experience. And so we did get a great deal of time doing that.
Right.
And just another part, a little interesting, and fortunately it turned out really well for us. Wendy and I we moved to Leesburg, Virginia 3 years ago this August, and we downsized. We downsized from a 3-level 5-bed, the typical suburban, here you are, you made it, to a 2-bedroom condo in Leesburg. Okay. And then, of course, COVID hit and shut down everything and made us have to live in that 2-bedroom condo. I think it was a real test of our relationship, as many things over the last 46 years have been, but that last year certainly was an exclamation point.
Oh, I'm sure. And you say so many wonderful commonalities about how people dealt with this in their own and different ways. What I love the fact is that, again, I had Todd and Brian on about
watch that
2 months ago, and what a wonderful experience to have both of them on and to hear in some of our pre-discussions. And we will be talking about how you guys came to be. But I love the fact that you guys were able to kind of hone in on a little bit, talk a little bit about, we'll cover it a little bit as we go along, but talk a little bit about how this record, which is hopefully in the next few months, I think you're looking to try to pop it out to the world. Yeah. How did that come about over these last 6 years? Was it just an amalgam of your building songs?
Some of it was, the work itself is like an autobiography, just in music. Some of the songs literally I wrote 40 years ago. Yeah. About that point in my life. And some of them I wrote last year about this point in my life. And so the work, I've constructed it with Todd's help. It's a concept album. It's like a photo album of music of my life, if anybody's interested. But I think it is relatable to anybody in a long-term relationship, anybody who has lived from the rock and roll years into the adult years, into the, let's just call it the later middle-aged years. I think it's very relatable. It will end up being the most personal thing I've ever done, because generally that's not totally my wheelhouse. Like in live performance, I don't get real intimate. I finally learned how to, with the help, again, of a lot of local people, Todd and Stilson Green and Don Chapman, and some people say, you need to play solo, you need to do this. So Todd was pretty much the instigator of this. I had a body of work. He had heard some of the songs over the years through his older brother, who was the one who introduced him to 4 Out of 5 Doctors. Yes. He was 11 years old when our first album came out. So he became a fan. And as he puts it, his story that he likes to tell a lot is, I found out, he was a fan of mine. He said, and I found out years later as an adult that he lived right down the road from me. So his story is, I stalked him and made him become my friend. Todd's hilarious, as you know.
Yeah, totally.
Not only talented, he's wicked.
Yes, he's exceptional. And is the project still entitled "The Weight of Early Promise"?
It is.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. There's a song we're going to play a little clip of to kind of just give people a taste of Cal Everett before we delve into your we do a whirlwind ride through your life. It's called Compromises. Talk about that song and where that's from and in your mind.
Compromises is not largely based, entirely based on the give and take, a lot based on Wendy and mine's early relationship at the time. I was in the doctors, we had been dating, she was with me when I got signed, and the hard life of wife at home, boyfriend in a rock band, you know, touring country. And then on our first tour, of course, the birth of our first child, which added another layer of stuff to work through. And that's another story we'll get into later in the broadcast.
Yes.
They say. But Compromises is exactly what you think it is. It's the give and take that we've had to do all through our relationship. So the beginning of the song starts out with literally the way we lived. She had a day job. I stayed home with a kid. Then I went out at night and she stayed at home at night. So it's just the agreements you make with one another in order to make it work.
I love that. And I love the way this sounds. Here, you guys, here's a little bit from The Weight of Early Promise from Cal Everett. And this record has been 6 years-ish in the making, probably longer considering the songs you wrote were long ago. But this is a little bit, just a taste of Cal and Compromises.
She goes to work to win the bread and it makes it hard. He stays at home and cleans the house and he mows the yard. She keeps the checkbook, he feeds the baby. All of their friends look at them like they're crazy. But they're in love and love lives on compromises. She calls the shop to fix the car when it's running wrong. He makes a grocery list and then he puts dinner on. And yes, they argue, sometimes you have to. It clears the system when you're at your wit's end. But they're in love and love lives on compromises. It's trust and devotion, some lust and real emotion now.
Yeah, that's wonderful, man. And I listened to the whole selection of songs you have, and we'll be listening to a little more of that as we go along. But congratulations on coming to bear with this amazing project. And
Thank you.
I want to follow you with it, and I'll let everybody know when it hits. But we'll be talking a little bit more about it now. Cal Everett, this is your life. We're gonna dive a little bit into your life again. Born in Arlington, so this is kind of a guy who's been around you guys in this area for life. Yep. First at Plymouth Hills, then in Annandale when you were about 4. I love how, music was all around, and that is very common and wonderful. And a lot of musicians, for the most part, is that you guys had, and so did I. And we'll talk in a minute about the music that influenced you that you were listening to, which is so similar to mine. And we're close in age, so it makes sense. But your sister got an Otto Altenberg baby grand for her 10th birthday. And so at 5, you're like, wow. Where were the biggest musical moments in your first 10 years of life?
Let's see, by the time I was 10. I wouldn't say that up till the years 10, there were many. I do remember distinctly, I'll never forget the day that piano rolled into the house, although I wouldn't play it for several more years. I never could stop myself from getting up on the bench and banging on the black keys and doing what little kid, I was a knucklehead toddler. What do I know?
Right.
I remember it had some attraction to me that at that age.
And you kept it through the years and wrote songs.
I kept that piano. In fact, there's several pictures that I've got of me with each of my kids at that piano.
Yeah.
I kept that piano. Oh, we moved to Reston and I moved it myself with some friends up to a penthouse apartment. That was not fun. But yeah, I literally kept it till it couldn't play anymore, until it was worn out. And so well into my adult years and child
Oh, and your mom was a singer for a big band, and your dad played trumpet. So they were doing music from minute one.
Yeah, and they played, and my parents were of the ilk, like if the radio wasn't on, the record player was on, and if neither one of those were on, they were singing, just singing in the house.
Wow.
Doing their chores, which actually is a trait that I inherited myself. Ask anybody in my household. When Dad's cleaning house, you're going to hear the cavalcade of hits because he's just going to sing out, and it could be anywhere from Frank Sinatra, to Coldplay, depending on the mood I'm in.
Well, it keeps things going. I remember being a landscaping kid in the teens and working at these ball-busting landscape places, and you had to have music on while you're digging holes and planting trees. And right now, music isn't in our house. So again, that's something I think from our generation is that music was set into us. About 8 years old, you moved to Potomac. You started learning piano. Was that the first delving into
that was the first, like I'd call it official. And this was back in a time, of course, this was the early 60s. And public schools were a completely different animal than they are today. And then you could get, we had a teacher that came into our classes and taught us band. I first started playing the trumpet like in 4th grade or something.
Yeah.
Came into the room and said, here, my dad had one, so I could just bring it to school. And they gave these classes. They were just after school, and it was called group piano.
Oh.
And that's where I first started learning how to play. Now, the interesting thing about this was, they didn't have the budget to give everybody a piano. So what we got was a piece of plywood shaped like about 64 keys of a piano, painted black and white, not even elevations, like none of that, to set in front of us to learn the scales, just put your fingers, and the teacher would play, and then she'd say, this is C, put your finger, and then go home on your parents' piano
and hit
that.
What? How does that work? Oh my God.
Class with a bunch of other people not making any noise, but learning, I guess, just like typing, like learning your finger placement, like, okay, here's A, C, here's C, here's my scale going up, here's my scale. And then you go home and see if it really works on a real piano.
Oh, wow. And in the midst,
I've never encountered one other person in all my life, even in my age group, which I thought I would run into one, who was part of one of those classes, one of those group pianos.
Oh, what? And again, it seems like you evolved where around the mid 60s to the late 60s, you continued to take piano lessons.
Yeah.
So you did jump into that. A friend of yours introduced you to a band that seems to have influenced, I'd say, 85% of the guests that I've had, and many of them are dear friends of yours and colleagues, the Beatles, obviously. And you've become, and we'll talk obviously about some of your amazing Beatles escapades. But what I love about some of this is that the interests that you had back then, where they were right in my wheelhouse, and largely from my parents' influence, like Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, like Burt Bacharach. They were huge parts of my youth.
Yeah.
Did that, and as well as Motown, pop, rock, people like, and then I love this, you had a Wedding Bell Blues was a pivotal moment. Talk a little bit about some of those influences and how they may have even carried through.
Yeah, well, it was like during that age time, as I was getting out of called elementary school, into middle school or junior high, we called it, and it's middle school now.
Yeah.
That's when I was kind of being bombarded from all sides. By that time, I'd been playing piano, but I was doing classical, and learning the stuff you have to learn. I was playing trumpet, and I was in the band at school, second. I think I made first trumpet once. I was usually second trumpet. I was always trying. Trumpet and me just didn't gel. But I was getting bombarded from all sides because I had my parents with their obvious musical influences. And the 60s, say what you will, here I am. I'm going to show my fuddy-duddy, boomerish nature. I defy anyone to find a music variety as much as there was from 1960 to 1969, anywhere, any decade.
Right.
I'm not saying there wasn't good music. I'm just saying the variety and that AM radio at the time played everything. There wasn't a R&B station and a rock. It was, This is pop music today. This is your top 40, and it was everything. It would jump from Temptations to the Beatles to Glenn Campbell to this to that. And I just loved it all. And I felt, I even say today, I consider myself a pop musician. That's what I do. I'm not a rock and roll guy. I'm not a classical guy. I'm a pop musician. I just like less than following groups, like people always say, well, what Beatles albums did you have? I only owned 2 in my whole life. I had the Beatles' second album, then I got Abbey Road at the end of their career. I listened to them. I was well aware of all their music because it was all over AM radio, you know? Wow. But I never followed bands. I liked songs, you know, pop songs. If they had a good melody and the chord changes were interesting to me in some, again, subconscious way, because I didn't know enough music to know what an interesting chord change was yet.
Right.
But I wasn't a real social animal. I was kind of, I kept to myself a lot. I had friends, you know, we played football and all that, but I didn't go to school dances, you know, for example. I just, you know, I felt, I was too shy. But one night, sitting at home, I knew there was a school dance that night. And I was putting on some of my sister's records, and she was a big fan of The Fifth Dimension. And I put on the single Wedding Bell Blues.
Yes.
And I don't know, something about that song, the chord, the melody, the singing, everything about it just made me feel so, I don't know, joyful or inspired that I said, I'm going to the dance. I'm getting up and going to the dance. And I'm glad I did, because then I heard my first kind of rock band at the ninth grade school dance. But yeah, that song, I don't know what it was, but it just spoke to me in a way that I've never forgotten. I often wanted to cover that song, but going, it's a female lead. And, you know, but of course, it is 2021. Who cares?
Exactly. You can do whatever you want.
Right? I can do whatever I want.
It's funny. I had about 2 or 3 interviews I did right before the pandemic, which, and I still am waiting to write the interviews. And one of them was with Florence from Fifth Dimension, which was just for a kid of the 70s and the 60s, actually. Wow. What a thrill that was. First year of high school, you started getting really interested in this kind of music. Yeah. Started playing trumpet in the school band, so the trumpet continued.
I kept going with that into the orchestra there.
Right, and then it's through. You got your first. This is when the guitars started coming in.
Yes,
you had a pivotal moment with Emmett Rhodes' first album.
Yeah,
and that kind of high school seemed to be a first cultivator of Cal Everett and music, right?
Yes, first legitimate band I was in was when I got into high school.
Yep.
A group called the Hole in the Wall Gang.
Yeah, baby.
Which I think we ripped straight from the Butch Cassidy movie. And it was me and St. John Hunt, who was Howard Hunt's son of Watergate fame.
Yes.
We met, and another buddy of mine, G.J. Schnabel, who has since passed, and then another good friend who I haven't seen in a lot of years, but he's still in the area, Bob Howard. He's a graphic artist and a really great drummer. At the time. So that was my first legit band. And all 3 of those guys were older than me. I was a sophomore and they were juniors and stuff. And I heard this album. My sister, who was a big influence on me as far as like listening to music, because she was a teenager, you know, she was like 4 years older than me. So all the new records and all the new stuff that was happening, she was getting. And if she wasn't getting it, her boyfriend, George Hedrick, was getting it. And they would always come over and go, here's the newest record of this. Here's the newest
man, how perfect.
And then, of course, I had my parents. But one time, my sister brought home this album. It was Emmett Rhodes. I call it his first album. It really, technically was not, because there were re-releases of recordings he made as a younger man. But it was his self-titled 1970 album called Emmett Rhodes.
Yes.
That was it for me. I listened to that record till I wore the needle out. And sure, I like the Beatles, but something, again, you know, much like the Wedding Bell Blues, something about this guy, what he was doing really spoke to me. He played all the instruments himself. He did all the vocals. He had a voice that at that time was very similar to mine, because, you know, it's kind of in the middle of puberty, so somewhere in between, which I learned later, my high voice would never go away.
No.
Something went wrong. But I heard this record and I just became dedicated to, okay, that's when I really ramped up my writing, like trying to write more. And my early stuff was, for the most part, just junk, you know. But 1 or 2 songs popped out, you know, that were just, I could tell, I'm getting the hang of this songwriting thing. One of them I still play today. When I play live, I start a lot of my solo shows with this song that I wrote when I was 14, going. And I don't set it up that way. Mm-hmm. I just play it for people. And there's no indication during the song in any way, especially with my ability to perform now, that it couldn't have been written yesterday.
Right.
I wrote this when I was 14 years old. I didn't even know what I was talking about, you know. So,
right.
And many people were kind of surprised, like, you're kidding me. Nope.
No.
So there was a couple of chestnuts that popped out that gave me hope. But this Emmett Rhodes guy he like was my, what do you call it? Your muse, my muse. Like I had to do what he did. I got very, very excited about trying to do recordings by myself. Oh. So I started learning other instruments. My sister's friend had given me a Gibson acoustic guitar a couple of years before I started learning how to play that. I knew about 4 chords. I already knew how to play piano. And then I had people give me instruments like along the way that I just have no idea why.
Wow. Well,
there's a reason for everything. Some friend of mine who didn't even play that I met at the lunch counter, because I had a job flipping burgers for a while at the People's Lunch Counter at Montgomery Mall in Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
Back when People's drugstores had lunch counters, back when there were People's drugstores, which
right.
What? Everything is just. Woo.
Yeah, exactly. And People's drugstures was Gary Olsey's first job in this area, which is so funny, from the Birchmere, as you know well. Yeah. It sounds great, because you were getting music handed to you and said, "Hey, listen to this."
Handed to me.
Instruments. I mean, it sounds like music was just being wonderfully foisted upon you, and you were embracing it. Although had an interesting situation when you were about 17 with the Hole in the Wall gang, where they were like, "Okay, well, we got a new guy, and we're moving on." And done. That seems like it bit you for a little while.
It was, well, you know, you're all full of piss and vinegar when you're in high school and you're that age. And I was the youngest guy, and the band Hole in the Wall Gang, we brought in this other guy who was a local legend named Joey Speranza. Extremely talented guy. I mean, this guy was good, and I admired him a lot. He played in this other band called Sudden Rush, which was the first like big top 40 band I ever saw. And they played in Georgetown, which was like, he was just barely out of high school. Like, this guy's a god. He joined the band, and I was so excited. And we changed our name to Daybreak. And then the next thing I knew, well, they're just got gigs, and I'm not in the band anymore. Like, well, I guess because I had to lug a piano around or something like that. So this guy that I had worked at the People's Drug Counter with gave me a knockoff of a Hofner bass. It was like this garishly colored purple and white Hagstrom. And I think the action on it was like this high. So like, the play it was, but I said, damn it, I'm going to learn how to play that, because if I'm going to do these recordings by myself, I need to know how to do everything. And by this time we kind of moved on. These guys graduated and they went their way. And in my senior year, the stage band, the jazz band, the real band, needed a bass player. I had never played bass in any ensemble at all, but I went up to the band teacher. I said, "I'll do it. I can play. I could read music." So I figured I can do this. Yeah, exactly. I faked my way through it. And from that minute on, I basically became a bass player. You know, for my main performance life, because there's a couple reasons. I found that being a singing bass player was in much demand. There were very few of them around. Right. So I always got work. And I started my own band after being unceremoniously booted from what I considered to be my band.
And that was Blue Skies, right?
Yeah, Blue Skies was the band I started. And I started it with 2 guys who couldn't have been bigger geeks if they wanted to. And I did that on purpose. Just, I'm going to grab 2 guys from the band, you know, who chicks don't like them, and they're not particularly funny or anything. And I'm going to make them this fabulous power trio. And that's what we're going to do. And so I got them, these underclassmen, and for some reason, they bought into my theory, and we drilled down. And our opening performance, we got a job playing for the junior prom at the high school. Right. Okay, so which was a real coup, because we'd never played anywhere. And I told these guys, I said, in order for us to do this, we have to make an impact. It's got to be a show. Can't just go out there and play music. It's the beginning of my whole wardrobe change thing, I think. So I made these guys, we all went out and we rented white tuxes with tails. Curtains were drawn. I made them draw the curtains so nobody sees us till we're on stage. I said, we start playing, you open the curtains, and there we are. And we opened up with a 3-piece version of Got to Get You Into My Life by the Beatles, with no bass guitar and drums, no horns, no nothing. And it was kind of mind blowing. I think I sent you some stills of that I still have, like a black and white photo and stuff. And that was it. And then that band played. We became quite a proficient top 40 band. We worked a lot for several years, a lot down on the Eastern Shore. It went through one guitar change incarnation, and then we finally let it go. Right. probably around 75, 4 or 5. I graduated in 73. Yeah, we probably quit around 75, which was the year that I met Wendy.
Yes.
And started that. And then it would only be a year after that that I met George Pittaway, and we would be the siblings of what would be 4 out of 5 doctors.
Yes, and that was when you were about 20, 21 or ish.
It was 1976, so I was 21 years old when I met George.
Yeah.
Right. And I had piddled around in one other band prior, In Between Blue Skies, and it was with Michael Fath, who's a fabulous Northern Virginia guitar player. Mike Fath, great. And a bunch of other guys I really can't remember who they were. They were Northern Virginia guys, and I had just moved down from Maryland, so I didn't really know anybody. And then, like I said, then I met George, and one thing led to another. But I kind of had to audition for the role, or I needed to impress George with something other than just, meet my say-so. And so I had made, by this point, the Emmett Rhodes thing had paid off, and I was making legitimate multi-track recordings by myself, playing all the instruments. And just for fun, in between recording my own music, I made a recording of God Only Knows by the Beach Boys, where I sang all the vocal parts and I tried to play all the orchestration and all the stuff. And that's what I played for George Pittaway, who then took that to Jeff going, you got to hear this.
Wow.
And so the three of us kind of got together and we hit it off. We did this vocal work for some of this film music that they were doing. And we decided, let's be a band.
Yeah.
And when the band first started, I was playing piano again. I said, well, I'll be the piano player and we'll find a bass player. And I brought this friend of mine, George Hedrick, who was my sister's boyfriend, the guy that had introduced me to a ton of music and who was a bass player. So I had him come down, and the nucleus of the band was Jeff and George Hedrick, my buddy, who has the same birthday as me, and we see each other every year.
Oh, fantastic.
And he was the original bass player, and I played piano. Synthesis, writing. We were writing all kinds of different stuff at that time. The band had 3 different writers, so music was coming from every direction. Jeff he came from the Dakotas and was kind of writing this fusion rock stuff, and I could be writing songs for David Cassidy at that point. George had this Middle Eastern sensibility, really interesting chord changes and modes and stuff. So we had to get all that to gel somehow. And we were writing songs that I wrote a couple of songs that could have been Little Feat B-sides. And George wrote, eventually we kind of found a groove.
Right.
And then we decided, Cal, you should be the bass player because we don't want to have a 5-piece group. We want to have a 4-piece group. We can find a drummer. And so then began the search for a drummer. So we were just a 3-piece band in the beginning.
Right. And then it evolved where things started to evolve from live performance perspectives. You recorded at least an album, right?
We had made so many demo recordings. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
3-4 albums worth of material. I mean, just tons of stuff, but we didn't play anywhere. We didn't even play backyard parties for our friends. We never played live. We were studio animals. We recorded. We learned how to record. We learned how to make ourselves sound as good as we could sound. And that was primarily due to Jeff, because Jeff really took engineering seriously and production and really became good at it. So he honed us. We did not play live until we got our first invitation to showcase for, I want to say it was Asylum Records. We had been sending unsolicited cassette tapes to New York, not even with an agent.
Wow.
And somehow one tape found its way into the hands of this agent named Larry Mazer, who got this tape to several major labels in New York. And this was right on the front end of the back end of the punk movement and the front end of the new wave movement. So we were right there, kind of writing that way. And we never gave playing live a second thought until we had to showcase. And then we said, and I remember I received the call. I was at home nursing a busted leg from a car accident Wendy and I were in early 79. And I got the call from, God, I wish I could remember his name. It's in my scrapbook somewhere. Guy called directly from, I think, Asylum Records going, hey, this is so-and-so, you know. And I went, yeah, okay, hi. They said, we're looking for somebody in 4 out of 5 Doctors. I said, well, I'm Cal. I'm the bass player. I'm in the band. They go, great. We got your tape here. We really like it, and we want to come see you play live. To which case, I just lied. I said, yeah, great, yeah. That'd be good. We'll do that. And so I hung up the phone. The guys came home from various work, whatever they were doing. I said, we got to put the band together. I said, we got to play now. So we got to work up a set, and we got to get a gig because this guy wants to come hear us play. So we did. We changed from a studio animal that minute to the other side of the room where we set up live and started trying to play the intricate things we had recorded with lots of tracks that we didn't have. So how are we going to make these 4 guys sound like the 7 guys we have on that recording? And we figured it out. You know, we figured it out. And we went, and our first gig, our first live performance was the Child Herald down off DuPont Circle, I think. No. It was off Connecticut Avenue, whatever circle is there. Yep. And it was the Child Herald. And it really wasn't it was a 2-floor place. And they were just now, because the club scene at that particular time, the mid to late 70s was awesome downtown for original live music.
Sure. It
really just opened up the punk thing and the new wave thing and everything, really opened it up for original artists, which was just key for us because, we just were never going to be a cover band. It just wasn't going to happen. No. So we played the Child Herald. We did our showcase. It was okay. Didn't get signed that night, but that started us. We knew right then we got to play. So then we became a live act. Then we started playing the Bayou and the Wax Machine. And then more and more things started happening. We started going to New York and playing all the big clubs in New York.
That's spectacular.
Yeah.
There's a couple of moments I want to give people to get a little taste of 4 out of 5 Doctors. One is one of the songs you did recorded called Modern Man, which I love. It seems like it's kind of the taste of the pop punk new wave style of 4 out of 5 Doctors.
Yeah.
Where did that song come from, Cal?
Jeff wrote that song, and actually I think it was the 3rd version of this song he had been trying to write for a while, because I remember him performing it for me with completely different lyrics as a piano, almost like a piano ballad. Oh. And he was very adept and very flexible at being able to. We all knew we had a meeting. This is probably important to tell us. When we were gelling our styles and we were writing and recording, there was a meeting at one point where Jeff had come to us. We had heard one of our roommates. We were living in a group house where basically it was all the band and 2 other people who must have had the patience of Job. So Jeff had come to us, like very serious one day, going, Cal, George and I have decided that we're going this post-punk new wave way. So, you're either going to write that way or, you're not. And we're going to do, but that's where we're going. That's where the band is headed. And I wasn't writing that way at the time, but the minute he said that, flipped the switch. Now I'm writing that way.
Oh, classic.
And I really dove into it with everything I could. Say it was 2 things. It was frightening to hear that, because I'm thinking, well, here I go again, Hole in the Wall Gang Part 2.
Right.
And it was a challenge at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, I can do this.
Right.
I can do this. I can write anything, and I have. So I'll just write this. What is it but pop music with this kind of quirky itch? So I did, and I put my heart and soul into it. But Jeff had written Modern Man based on another song that he had written, and then he just morphed it. He changed the lyrics entirely to the very, catchy and trendy at the time, modern, and just hitting every button there was to push on the genre. And it was beautiful. I wish we had a recording of his doodling around with it when it was a ballad.
Right. Well, here's a sweet little taste of 4 to 5 Doctors and a real shining moment for them. Here's a little bit of Modern Man.
Take the center
Yeah, that does give you a sense of the band at that time. Another thing that gives
Yeah.
a nice little sense of the band is a piece that PM Magazine did, where, and you know, you were just talking about kind of how you had to evolve your live presence, and this was at the Bayou. And I love this. Any quick anecdotes about this experience?
We were just excited as heck. We really didn't know it was going to happen until it happened. I can't remember if Henry Tenenbaum, who was the host of the show, actually called us, or if I don't even remember how it was set up. But we were playing the Bayou, and they decided to come down. They were going to do this PM Magazine piece on the fly. I think we did a brief interview in the dressing room at one point where they were talking to us. And then they just recorded the show and interviewed the crowd. It's really a time capsule. It really is a time capsule.
Yeah, I totally love this. Here's a little bit of a look at 4 out of 5 Doctors from their heyday back in the early 80s from PM Magazine.
We're at the Bayou, a club on K Street in Georgetown, to meet one of Washington's hottest rock groups. Hi, I'm Henry Tenenbaum.
And I'm Camilla Carr. Welcome to PM Magazine.
The rock group is called 4 out of 5 Doctors. Their music is hard to describe, but it's great to listen to, as you're about to find out. This is the Lost Basement. Here, 4 musicians spent 5 years in isolation. Instead of going out and performing, they stayed here, honing their talents, and their efforts were successful. Their first album was released in January. From Out of the Basement, meet 4 out of 5 Doctors.
She's in the cold cream and I'm making bounds in my room. She's like a prom queen and I'm the prophet of doom.
They've got a lot of talent and they're great on stage.
They're great.
Yeah,
you know, watch out cars.
I play lead guitar for the CIA.
Washington's had a reputation for sort of killing its own band sometimes, but this one really seems to be doing pretty well.
My new coat is only a disguise. I touch the untouchable right between the eyes.
If they keep it up, they'll make it.
Well, here she comes, just walking down the street. Sampling her fingers and showing her face. She looked good, she looked fine. She looked good, she looked fine, and I really love my band.
Like many musical groups, the Doctors are an unlikely conglomeration. Jeff Severson, on keyboard and guitar, once worked as a computer operator in a monastery. Cal Everett is lead singer, bassist, and a former house builder. George Pittaway, guitar, played bit parts in Bombay movies. And Tom Ballou worked the Alaskan Pipeline, the Carnival Circuit, and the drums. In a business that releases thousands of new albums a year, the Doctors are doing better than most. In fact, Billboard named them Breakthrough Group of the Month. Not bad for any group, especially one from Washington.
Original music plus Washington, D.C. equals poverty, still even today, unless you have a national record out.
We took a look at what was happening on the local scene and what had happened in not only in this city, but other cities. And it seemed the best route was to concentrate on doing your own music, to create your individual style. And we thought the best place to do that would be to woodshed someplace in a basement.
Japan is a screaming room. Lovers leave over the moon. A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. John Wayne.
Yeah, that's fantastic. As I mentioned, Jan Zakowski was on, former Nighthawks bassist, and they'd had a little PM Magazine thing. It gives such a sense of what you guys were at that moment.
Right.
And I really love that. Around that time, your first child was born, Corey.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved how you said Oryoko, as some disgruntled doctors dubbed it.
Right.
I mean, wow. So this was a big moment.
Yeah, it was huge. As having children is huge.
Yeah, it is.
And I didn't even have to do the hard part.
Me neither.
But yeah, we were on tour. The Doctors were on tour. We were on the ill-fated, awful West Coast swing with Pat Travers, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow.
Wow.
And us opening up. It was the tour from hell.
Oh.
Several key points that made it hellish, and I will give them to you candidly, is the thing that led to that tour was we got stuck on a show with UFO at Ritz Ballroom in New York by some happenstance, opening up for them. Our music couldn't have been more of a change than what UFO was.
Yes.
I'm not criticizing UFO. I'm just, whoever put that bill together was drinking. There's just no way. And so we were like peering out from behind the curtains, and there's this sea of just boys, quaaluded out, leather jacketed, metalhead boys. And it's like, oh God, and we're going to go out there and sing Modern Man. So we did, and it was awful. And we were literally, they were throwing personal possessions at us on stage. They weren't satisfied with just throwing their drinks. I started getting hit with wallets and ID cards and things. But we soldiered on. We were so naive and so wanting our career to do, hey, they put us here, that this must be part of the growing process.
Yeah.
And that the house sound people actually pulled the plug on us 5 minutes before the end of our set.
Oh my God.
I think to save our lives. But I even have the article. I have the news article from Rolling Stone magazine where they had done a little brief thing about, and then 4 out of 5 doctors opened up for UFO, and they got the plug pulled on them because the crowd was so blah, blah, blah. So anyway, based on that success, our record company representative thought it was a great idea to send us out west with Richie Blackmore and Pat Travers.
Oh,
this is insanity. This is insanity, but we go.
Opening up for Boom Boom, Out Go the Lights. And
yes. And we heard it every night. It got to, we started in Seattle, Washington. And again, we went out on stage hoping for the best. Again, we were hit with everything the audience had to offer. And we were so naive. We played our entire 45 minutes. We didn't stop and walk off stage.
No.
But by the time we got all the way down and back to Denver, our last stop, our set was 25 clean minutes of the loudest rock we could play. We didn't play anything from the record anymore. We just played rock songs that we wrote and that we didn't record.
Oh
and
my God.
We went over great.
I bet.
We weren't repping any of the album. And then we find out the album hadn't even been released west of the Mississippi.
Oh my God.
Even if you were the 0.0001 of the quaaluded out boys in the audience who said, there might be something there, you couldn't find the record anywhere. It wasn't there. Oh. So this led me down, and about midway through that tour, we're in Los Angeles, staying right on Los Angeles Boulevard, getting ready to play the arena. Again, opening up the same 2 bands.
Right.
And that's when I found out through a phone call with Wendy that, hey, guess what? I was in the It's a Wonderful Life, George Lassu's Stork. So it's Cal Lassu's Stork. And I'm, what?
Oh my
what?
God.
And I'm excited as heck. And I was really elated. And I remember telling the band, and I remember to this day the look on their faces. It was just kind of our resignation to, ooh.
What's that going to
do? So I did a lot of soul searching and things after that. And thought, well, we got offered near the end of that tour. Get this, we got offered before we came home. We were finishing up in Denver. It was like an 11-city tour starting in Seattle and fishhooking back up to Denver through Arizona and New Mexico. And somewhere during Arizona and New Mexico, somebody asked us, hey, do you want to join the ZZ's Top Tour in Texas? They're going, and I don't want to have any of that. No. Now, in retrospect, I wish I'd gone just to have heard that band every night.
Yes, exactly. And especially,
I just couldn't do it. What other funny part about the tour from hell? We got along famously with the crew, like the roadie. Oh. We played cards with them, back. They had a nickname for us. It was called 4 out of 5 minutes.
Are you going to get 4 out of 5 minutes that you're?
They had a pool going every night. How long will you be out there?
Oh God! Well, it's great. It's great that you had the at least the attitude to be able to bounce through something like that. Because as you said at the beginning, what a kick in the tail! You actually had a wonderful experience that you seemed around that time that you seem to have relished and still relished. Is you appeared in a movie House on Sorority Row.
Yes.
Kind of a horror-ish type of,
horror mystery thriller
thing. But as a band in the movie, we've got an amazing clip. But give a brief update, overview on how that came to be.
Well, I'm first and foremost, I'm a huge horror fan. Halloween is my favorite holiday of the year. As you can see by some of the backdropping that I have here, I have collections of hundreds of things, Dracula's, Frankenstein's, everything. I used to build model kits, the Aurora kits that were 99 cents when I was a kid. I still have them all in the cabinet here. So I was a huge horror fan, have been all my life.
Right.
And this George Pittaway, the guitarist's girlfriend's brother, knew the director of that film. And it was his first movie. He knew our album was coming out. It was a locally filmed thing. We filmed it up in Towson. And it's a total B film. And they had invited us to be in the movie, to have a part, not just have our music in it, but to actually perform in the movie, like be a band. And I think I had like 6 or 7 speaking lines that got edited out before the final cut. But I think you can still find them on the director's cut. No, kidding. So I was this, to me, I mean, I love the Doctors. I loved everything that we did with the Doctors. But for some odd reason, the most exciting part of the whole thing for me was being in that damn horror movie. It was just like, I've always wanted to do this.
Oh, and it's,
I know I'm not a victim. I know I'm not the guy, but I'm in the movie, and that's all. That's all.
You're in the movie as the girl is walking upstairs and gets pulled off the thing. What's fascinating and wonderful on your end is that you were kind of the central person in this scene. This is a great moment, you guys, and it gives a real sense of Cal at that time with the guys. This is a little bit of 4 out of 5 Doctors in House on Sorority Row.
To a special part of the evening tonight. I think one you've all been waiting for. We just clear the dance floor here, please. Get everybody to back off a little bit. That's good. Let's get our graduating ladies out front here. Come on, give them a big hand. Let's get them all out front here. Okay, quiet down a minute here, quiet down.
Where's Stevie? She's upstairs polishing her tennis shoes.
Okay, we're going to start this snowball off with these 6 ladies up here. You all can join in after a while. Vicky.
Where's my gun?
Upstairs.
Hey, how'd your little prank go?
Just fine.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a blast.
Yeah. It was huge fun, and it was really way in on the front end because I said the movie was being filmed before the record came out, just before, I think. Right. Some of the songs we used on it. No. I take that back. It was actually being filmed as we were getting ready to record our second record.
Oh.
So some of the songs that were used in the movie were our basement demo tapes for songs that would be on the second record, as well as having songs off the first record that are actually off the album.
Wow.
And at that time, if I'm remembering correctly, back to the picking up the Corey, the first child thread, this was also, Wendy was pregnant at the time.
Right.
And I'd done a lot of soul searching about what was going to happen and what we're going to do. And over that next year, we went back into the studio. We toured. We finished that tour. We did get a couple of what I call payback tours. We got to tour with Hall & Oates, a college tour, right when their Voices album came out, because they were in decline, and then that Voices album hit, and it picked their career. Then their career just went crazy.
It did.
And we opened for them at all these colleges in the Northeast, and we were shocked and surprised to find out that many of the people that came to these shows came because of us, because we were really big on college radio.
Wow.
We were like, it's funny. I've got charts from college radio all over the country where you know, we're ahead of Elvis Costello or Blondie or
awesome.
Flash. It's like, I'm not even believing my eyes. But so we on college radio, apparently we were the thing. We were happening. Something that was lost on our record company when we tried to tell them that college radio was going to be really important. They said, it's flash in the pan. Those kids are hippies. You know, they'll graduate in a few years. And they also had the same comment to us. We said, we want to do a video for MTV. Flash in the pan.
Oh, God.
They're going to last. Seriously. These are what they were telling us.
Wow.
So we were getting ready to do the second record. We're doing the second record. Corey gets born after that. And after the second record, the wheels start coming off the bus. Because it wasn't released well. It wasn't marketed at all. It had a horrible release month and date. And our agent pretty much had cut ties. He was now managing Cinderella. And we were, things weren't going our way. I became a father, and the band, we were just floundering.
Right.
We were farmed out playing clubs in Cal County and stuff. And we had a meeting. I had a come to Jesus meeting with the band going, we can't do this anymore. If we want to continue, we've got to forget all this. We've got to get back. We've got to start all over. Let's just start writing new stuff. We're all writing things that aren't the Doctors. Let's do like we did. And if you want to do this, great. If you don't want to do this, great. And so because of that, and because I just had a child, there was a little thing going around some of the fans that Corey, my first son, Corey is Yoko, as though me having a child broke up the band. So
that's nice.
That's kind of a fun. I think somebody even made a T-shirt. Corey is Yoko.
Oh, good Lord. That's ridiculous.
And so we crept back into the studio. We did another, almost 2 albums worth of material again that just sat in the can on 2-inch tape. We dredged some of it up and digitized it and released it during our second reunion show at Jam and Java. But, it was all but over back in '82. We had crashed and burned as much as we were going to, and life changed. So I became very suburban and middle class, and I had pretty much decided to hang up my guitar for a while, sold all my gear. I did get a piano. I bought that piano. Actually, I shouldn't even say I bought it because I was dirt poor. My mom and dad bought it for me. I bought it from a family in Potomac where I used to live and brought it home. And boy, am I glad I did.
I bet.
I'm not sure if I had sold all my gear and didn't have a piano that my trajectory would have been quite the same.
No.
If you call it a trajectory.
Yes.
And I just got around to being a dad and a husband. And I had a stint as a DJ on Friday, Saturday nights at WAGE, your sound choice.
I saw that. And it was about a 10-year period of kind of continuing to work on songs.
Yep.
Continuing to do demo stuff with the Gibson brothers, Scott and Steve.
Yep.
Yeah, Emily was born in '87. You had Cameron in '89. So a lot of things in that 10-year period going on. But music continued to be there. It just was trying to figure out maybe its next step.
Yeah. It was just, even though it's like I've had this discussion with Wendy and some of my other friends, no matter what I do, I cannot play, I cannot perform, which I didn't for a lot of years, 8 years maybe. I didn't really play in a band of any kind.
Right.
I did recording things with people. But I just couldn't stop writing. I couldn't stop the machinery in my head. Even if I didn't play it or write it down, which I very rarely ever do, I just remember it. And I would be going to work. By this time I had a regular job with an international trading company that my wife worked at. I literally got out of the doctors and I realized I have no skills. And yet I cleaned myself up and I just started interviewing for jobs that I had no business getting, and I didn't. But my wife's company that she was working for at the time took a chance. They needed somebody to run the photocopier. So I got a job running the photocopier, and I eventually became a manager of some type in this international trade organization. It was weird. I just did that. And for a lot of years, but at the same time, just on my ways to and from work or in the car, things would just come down the pipe to me. Songs, lyric, and oftentimes almost completely realized as far as the melody and the words. Like I would work it out in a couple of car rides or a couple of runs around the neighborhood. I would have it all finished, except for one thing. I didn't know what chords went to it because I never played it.
Right.
So I would sit down with a fully baked melody and on the piano, and I figure out what the chords might be. It's very liberating to do it that way.
I bet.
Melody is. And then that became my preferred mode of writing to this day. It's just let it kind of happen.
Right.
And only noodle around where I think I need to sharpen things up.
Right. I mean, the 90s hit, and I loved your phrase was you were still mostly invisible, but you're still writing songs.
Yep.
And then around the mid 90s, you decided, it seemed, look, I want to get back and play. And
I wanted to play again. I was missing the performance aspect. I wanted to play live. I know I enjoyed it. I can't remember exactly what the catalyst was, but I had done a few recordings with Ronnie Smith, who I'm sure you know, very friendly with, good drummer, plays a lot of Bandhouse shows with us. Yep. Very active around town, several bands. Really good fella. He went to the same high school as I did, but years after me. I think he was in school with my younger brother.
Right.
And he knew this fella, a guy named Greg Regis, who was a songwriter, quite a good one. And they were recording it, and they had somehow teamed up with Jeff Severson, I should probably pronounce his name right. I've called him Jeff Severson all my life, and everybody else calls him Severson, and to this day I call him Severson. I think by now he's given up on me ever learning it differently.
Right.
And he was working with these guys, and he called me in for bass and some vocal help. And that's how I met Ronnie Smith. So when I got the itch, I decided, well, I'll talk to Ronnie Smith and say, hey, you want to start a band? Because I'm ready to start a band. Didn't know a guitar player. And then Louis Newmyer, Wendy's brother, who's Ronnie's brother, the musical family everywhere. He knew this guitar player that he played in a band with called Jim Cowan, who I'd never met. And I went over to his house one day, and I kind of laid out for him what it was I wanted to do. And I remember what my sales pitch was to him. It was, I think I had a couple of recordings that I had made, just sound on sound stuff that I'd done at home, or on one of those little TIAC, because remember the TIAC Porta studios they had for, those were lovely. So small and so terrible sounding, but at the same time, so good. I think I played him a few things off that I had kind of worked up in a hurry. And he said, well, I'm X amount of years old. What was I at that time? 40 years old, I think. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm 40 and I want to get a Grammy before I'm 50. And I think we can do this. So I said, let's just start this band. It'll be a power trio. I went back to my favorite, still to this day, my favorite form of band is a trio. There's such an economy of purpose in a trio. Just guitar player, you know how they are. Let them do their thing. Bass player, lay down the groove. Drummer. Grand funk, you know, the whole deal. Perfect. So we started this trio called Zip, and we just did strictly original stuff. We just woodshed it in the basement. And these guys both had the luxury of circumstance where they didn't have they didn't have to work a lot. I did. So we worked at night at Jimmy's house in Bethesda. And they, you know, with no promise of ever playing, I just said, I just want to play in a band. I want to do all this live material that I've written in my head, and I know it'll sound good in a band. And it did. And we ended up playing a couple of like these crosstown jam things where we got to play for, you know, at some club. They were organized by Whamma and Mike Schreiber. Crosstown jams. They did them for a couple of years, and we did those, I think, 2 years in a row. And then that kind of springboarded us. Well, if you guys pick up a couple of covers, you know, you can start playing some, you know, clubs, you know. So we did. We went kind of the half cover, half original route. Played mainly in Northern Virginia for the most part. We didn't play in Maryland a whole lot, although we did play the Louis that was in Bethesda.
Yes.
That was another one of our early performances. We opened up for one of Ronnie Newmyer's bands for something they were doing. I can't remember
great.
Exactly. And he said, you guys want to come open for us? And so we did. It was a lot of fun. And we ended up doing a recording of all the material that I had written for the band. And these guys were very great, very good contributors. I don't think I could have lucked into a better guitar player at the time than Jim Cowan for just openly interpreting what I wrote on piano or acoustic guitar and getting it to come across. He just got me. He was inside my head. He just got me. And he just did fabulous orchestral guitar work. So we did our recording, and I said, well, I don't want to do a lot of overdubs here. I want it to sound like a power trio. So I said, maybe once or twice we overdub a guitar, we do something like that, but I want it to sound just like us. So it's incredibly raw and direct, but it's very honest. And to this day, it's one of my favorite packages of songs recorded that I've ever done. I love it.
That's absolutely wonderful. Beginning of the 2000s, you started a new trio with Ernie and David, who were 15 to 20 years younger. Met them, and the bar circuit. That's pretty. How did that go for you? And that was
again, just incredibly lucky to have met these fellas. I think Ernie at the time had just graduated from George Mason, so he was fresh out of college. He was playing in this band called 3 Cents Shy that played across the street, the neighborhood bar from my neighborhood. And Wendy and I and all our neighbors used to go up, and I routinely go when they were playing because they were one of my favorite bands. I don't know, they were just good. I liked everything they did. He was a very good, strong performer. He played acoustic guitar and sang, and just they did the 90s, the whole 90s sound, and I liked it. And I was playing in Zip at the time, and we played the same bar. And so one night Ernie had come in, they were done playing, and him and the drummer, Mark Taylor, had come in, and we were finishing up our set. And I think I was doing Round Here by Counting Crows, which was one of Ernie's favorite songs, an incredibly difficult song to sing.
Yeah.
And he was impressed. And so we started talking after the show, and we found out that we had a lot of common ground. And then I think he contacted me off the books a little later and said, hey, I got this buddy of mine, David Cooper, who's a drummer, and we're thinking about doing a thing, and we'd like you to be a part of it, be the bass player. So that's how we got together. We started rehearsing as a little 3-piece acoustic combo, and grew into a wild ass 90s cover band, and we started writing songs. I was always writing songs, and I strongly encouraged them. I said, Ernie, look, you can do this. You can write some songs. You've got to have some ideas in your head. And he had what I call fragments, and we just kind of fleshed them out, and he was really good at catching on. Very catchy choruses and stuff that he could write. And so we said, well, let's record them. So we did our first recording, and that went well. And I had this kind of thing at the time, the Flying Dutchman for any band I'm in is the minute we make a recording, it's over. Not by choice, but that's just kind of the way historically it worked out. I did the Zip record, we played, and then we fell apart. And then we did One Stop, and we fell apart.
Oh, good.
We ended up doing a second recording 5 years after we got together. Ernie had instigated, said, look, why don't we just get together? No live playing, no clubs, none of that. Let's just get together, see what we got written, and just do another record. I said, fine, I love doing that kind of stuff. So we got together and we did another recording, and both of them I consider to be just real good little pop records, real good little pop records. And the stuff that I wrote for that band was perfect for that band, for that 90s new millennial thinking, the sound. And it was fun. It was really a lot of fun. And we still, in fact, recently Ernie has tried to instigate a third recording, and then I'm on board. I said, I'm happy to do it.
That's great. And again, another wonderful, chapter again that facilitates the writing of Cal Everett. It facilitates what you are and love doing so much. Around that time, your brother-in-law invited you to play at this thing that they were beginning called the Bandhouse Gigs Tributes. And what an amazing thing. As I've told people, that behind me is the Fillmore, where I did my first Bandhouse gig. As a midlife cover band guy, it was enough, let alone as a lifetime musician. Right. You know what it's like. Give a little bit of a nutshell before we look at some of your band, because, to me, this just gave you the wonderful experience of performing again, your showmanship, everything. It must have been an incredible ride, as well as working with your brother-in-law. And,
he had, as I said, he had done a couple shows already, maybe 3. He had done the Neil Tribute and 1 or 2 others, and he was working on Neil Young, and we were both working at Armin's, obviously the family business at that time. Schlepping pizzas at a church right down the road on Wisconsin Avenue for a Friday night event they were having. And that's when he asked me, he said, well, do you have any interest in, doing this Neil Young show? And I said, well, I was very ambivalent about it. I recall at the time I was neither hot nor cold. But then I thought about it, and I thought, well, yeah, sure. And he kind of told me a little bit more about it. I'd never been to any of the tribute shows yet. Wendy had gone to see the Nils Lofgren one up at the Strathmore when they were outdoors.
Yep.
And, so I didn't know a whole lot about it, but I thought, yeah, sure. And he kind of gave me the thumbnail, and that's where it started. And I remember walking into Chuck Sullivan's basement for the first rehearsal for that show. I'm a cocky guy, you know, I'm confident. I was in over my head. I mean, I just knew it. John Carroll was sitting there on the damn organ. And I'm going, oh my God, I don't know why did I let myself get talked into this? I just thought, I'm not up to this. I can't do this. I was intimidated beyond belief in my head.
Yep.
But I thought, you know what? I'm just going to be generous. I'm going to be so kind to everybody in case I suck.
Well, no way.
That they will gently but firmly invite me to leave the thing. Fortunately, it didn't work out that way.
No, not quite.
Ronnie had given me this kind of eclectic version of the song, Helpless.
Yes.
But it wasn't by Neil Young. It was by the Canadian singer, really good. Why am I not pulling her name right now?
Katie Lang?
Yes, thank you, Katie Lang.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a very different take on it with a lot of bass on the front end, like a popping bass. I thought, I like this. I like where this is going. So we did that song, and I love the way she sang it. And so I said, let's just do it in the same key, and I'm going to sing it just like that. And this is going to be great. And with, you know, you got John Carroll as part of your backing vocal team, and he's phenomenal performer and player. I literally thought I was going to die in the room standing next to him. And he just, you know, it turned out he's a sweet guy. And we have since then done tons of shows together, not only as Bandhouse, but he's also part of the local Leesburg Mafia, where we do the Jingle Jam fundraiser every Christmas for Juvenile Diabetes. And we had John a relationship there.
I had John on, and boy, we talked forever, and what an incredible guy. And it's funny that it's really interesting. You would walk into the Bandhouse to Chuck's basement, which I've been in for my 2 shows I've done with them. And, you know, again, I was intimidated not being a lifetime musician and seeing the Sidleys and David Kitchen and you and all these other people for the Bowie thing, for you to feel that way and then succeed with such just absolute wonderful.
You're very.
Well, we're going to show some people why I say that and why it's agreed across the Bandhouse gig spectrum with all the wonderful people. Starting out with a little clip of what Cal just talked about. This is from the 10th anniversary video that everybody did. A little piece. I saw one with Billy Coulter and a number of other people that the Bandhouse gigs got you guys to do a little clip about what it was like to be with Bandhouse gigs after doing it for many years. But within this clip, here's a little Cal Everett at the Neil Young tribute doing a little bit of Helpless.
Okay, so the first show that I was involved in was the Neil Young tribute, which was outdoors at the Strathmore. It may have been the last outdoor show at the Strathmore.
Helpless, helpless, helpless. Helpless, helpless, helpless. Helpless, helpless,
That was my introduction to the Bandhouse gigs format, and I was really pretty excited about it. The main thing I enjoy about doing the Bandhouse gigs things is it's given me an opportunity to interact with some of the great musicians and talent in the Washington area. Otherwise, I'm sure they would never call me if I wasn't thrust upon them on these shows. I'm sure my phone never would have rung having these guys be on stage with them. So for me, it was like, it's such a thrill, like, oh God, I get to play with this guy, and I get to play with that girl, and I get to play with these people. This is so awesome for me. I've enjoyed the experience. I've loved the venues I've got to play with Wolf Trap and Strathmore. It's offered me a wealth of opportunity with interacting with other musicians in the community. And it really is a heartfelt experience. I mean, everybody that's involved really commits. And in the beginning, and even today, there's so much that's just sheer volunteerism. You know, people just saying, you know, we want to do this. We want to do this for the music community here in Washington. We want to do this for the people. I like that. I really like that aspect about it a lot.
I really was. That first day in the basement with all those players there, and I just thought, I just didn't feel I had the legit, you know, I didn't have the street cred to be with these guys. It's like, I play bars in Northern Virginia, man. You know, I don't do this, but I'm sure glad I said yes, and I'm sure glad I've said yes to every other one after that I've been invited to do.
Oh, totally.
And it's funny you mentioned that, you know, when you come into a room, I usually try and go out of my way if it's their first show, because I remember how it was for me. And I just say, I'm going to be their rock if they need it. I'm going to be right there for them. I'll get them through this. I will help everybody I can.
Yeah.
Go through that experience, because it can be overwhelming.
Oh, everybody was so nice to me who, you know, again, I probably was one of, at the Bowie thing, I was probably one of less than 5 who'd never done anything like this. And then the Elvis Costello one at the Barnes was the same kind of thing. I mean,
good that way. I give Ronnie tons of credibility and credit for, like I said, great. I mentioned this every solo gig I play, even here in Leesburg, even though they don't know him from Shinola. I say, you know, if these people are more than anything else responsible for me doing this again the way I do it, and enjoying it so much. And he's definitely a part, because that exposure he gives you, and the audience, you know, the Strathmore, the Barnes at Wolf Trap, those types of venues. I mean, I'm not walking in there and playing those by myself, and I'm not playing with these guys ever. I'm not getting a chance to play with them in a band. I know that. So this is it, you know?
Right.
I'm going to seize it and ride with it.
Yeah. Well, you seized it and rode with it for up to the present day. So congratulations on that. We've got another couple of clips from Bandhouse over the years that Cal has done. One I love, and this shows the ability of your voice to get up there, as it always has. This is from the Bandhouse gigs, Joni Mitchell tribute, and this is with Stuart Smith, etc. This is a little bit of Car on a Hill. You really nailed that.
What was funny, I remember there was an after party after the Nick Lowe show across the street at Grayson, drummer for the Craven Dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Can't remember what she did. But anyway, there was a party over at his house afterwards, and Ronnie had just started talking about the Joni Mitchell show. And I just kind of overheard it out of the corner of my ear. And one of my favorite albums in high school and shortly after was Court and Spark. I mean, I loved beginning to end every cut. And I didn't listen to a lot of female performers, but I love that Joni Mitchell album. And I heard him, and I came right over to him at that moment and said, I'm doing Car on the Hill. I said, I don't care if I don't do anything else in the show. I'm doing Car on the Hill. And he kind of looked at me like, sure. And then I remember when we then was getting a band together, and he sent a lot of emails, making calls. Well, Cal, what key are you going to do this in? I said, the key of the record.
Oh, and they're like, what?
I said, what? I said, well, Joni Mitchell, even though she has a stratospherically high voice at times, she has a very baritone-y sounding tenor. So right. I just thought I can do that. I can emulate that sound and not make it sound corny. And I have this prideful thing. It's probably bad, but I'm using it as my moniker for when to get out. I tell myself and people that I work with, if I can't sing it in the key of the record, then I'm done. I can't do it. I won't do the song. I don't want to step things down 3 keys and make everybody learn it in some, A flat minor, So I told me, we're gonna do it in the regular key. But I remember that being in the kitchen of his house and of this party and saying, I'm doing that song. And good for him. He let me do it. I didn't think he was gonna.
Oh God. Yeah, I think it was a great move because I hadn't seen that clip and I was just like, what? Yeah. I knew Cal saying hi and that's his mantra, but wow, Joni, I love that clip.
And having that group of background singers, on that song, they were great. Fabulous.
Spectacular. Yeah, that's the beauty of that, is that not only are there amazing people. I remember when I was doing Blue Jean at the Bowie thing, there's the Sidleys on either side of me and Flo Anito. And I'm like, well, can't go wrong here as long as I don't screw up. I think we're all embellished. This is one that has a lot of kind of ramifications and meanings to you. It's from 2010, and it's the British Invasion tribute with David Kitchen, Tom Ballou, and Tom Lofgren. And it's a Beatles song, and it shows again the wonderful tenor and feel you have for the Beatles, and that has grown into Beatles bands that you've done, and just saw you with Calgary, which I love, doing some at the Cancer Can Rock thing, so that is still continuing. But Please Please Me is such a wonderful piece. Isn't it wonderful singing the Beatles for somebody who loves them?
Yeah, it is. I've always been kind of a shameless admirer of Paul McCartney's vocal style.
Yeah.
Because I liked the way he could transition, and I started very young in life learning how to do that from a very clear tenor to a very muscular, deep sounding, or a very growly sound. McCartney could do all of those, within the confines of one song.
Yeah.
And I remember when I threw the first band Blue Skies together, one of the other songs we did was Why Don't We Do It in the Road?
Oh,
and I did that because I had learned to make my voice sound like that. I'm 18, I'm feeling real happy with myself. Like I've got this deep throat.
Why don't we do it? Yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly.
Oh, great. And then the feel that you guys have for this song, it's just, and I'm a Beatles fanatic, and years later, about 5 years ago, I was able to sing at Jam and Java for that Beatles tribute that Peter Grattan did, and they let me do Let It Be, which that'll never surpass anything. It came as close to the Bowie gig as anything I've ever done, and to be able to sing the Beatles live as a fan. This is a little bit, you guys, at Bandhouse gigs, British Invasion 2010, with Cal, David, and the Toms doing Please Please Me.
Last night I said these words to my girl. I know you never even tried, girl. Come on, 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 come on. Please, please me, oh yeah, like I please you.
It's funny, that clip I think that you're looking at was the second night of that performance, because we did 2 nights in a row at Strathmore. And the microphones, I'm 6'4", and my mic generally has to be like way up high. The microphones were left set from whoever finished, I guess, the night, or whoever was doing sound check. And the stage was dark because they do that little vignette up where the guy's on the fake radio.
Yeah.
And I was turned around backwards because we were supposed to be. So I did not notice until we turned to face the mic that the thing's 6 inches too low. So if you look in the video very closely, you'll see me kind of not making it too obvious that I'm splaying out my knees like Elvis Costello so I can get shorter to sing into the mic. And fortunately, McCartney does a lot of this tilting his head anyway. So I thought, well, I'll just bend my knees and try to shrink right on stage 6 inches.
Oh, fantastic anecdote to that. Well, it didn't affect the sound.
No. And you'll see me shooting glances off to the side, like, would somebody please get out here and raise this microphone?
Oh, I totally love that. Through the next few years, and again, around that time, there was a time when you met Todd Wright, which I think ended up being one of the better kind of meetings and collaborations of your musical life because of
and again, I've got Ronnie and Bandhouse gigs to thank for that one. I mean, it opened up so many avenues for me that I wouldn't have found on my own, I'm certain. And Todd, even though apparently he had been like on the Joni Mitchell show, and I didn't know it. I considered the first time I met him was the Nick Lowe show, because we were good. Oh no, I take that back. It was the Neil Finn show.
Neil Finn,
because he actually came over to my house for the first time. He had opened up for the Doctors in 2008 for the reunion show. I remember going out to listen to him sound check, thinking that's really nice. It's really good. I didn't know him at all, and I didn't think we were going to have an opening act. But Jeff said, "Yeah, let's get this kid. He's a really good storyteller, and he writes really good songs. He's funny as hell." I said, "Okay, fine." We didn't really talk that much during that reunion. So on the Neil Finn tribute that we were going to be doing at the Barnes, I think, Ronnie had paired us up, me and Todd came over to my house. And that was the first time we really met. He was a big fan, really loves Neil Finn, and I loved Crowded House. And prior to that, I liked their prior incarnations as a band.
Totally.
And that's where we really first met. And we just kind of worked on the material. And he was sitting in my basement at the time, which was a much larger version of what I'm sitting in right now. Only not only did it have monsters, it was full of superheroes, because I'm a huge comic book fan as well. So he was sitting around here. He goes, I've got a friend you should meet. This guy named Stilson Green. He's kind of a comic book guy like you are. And that led me to Stilson. Stilson led me to the greater Leesburg music scene. But Todd and I got together. And it wasn't until a little bit later he had kind of told me the story that I told earlier about how he had stalked me and made me his friend because he was a huge Doctors fan. And he really wanted me to start coming to his studio and help him co-write stuff and be an active writer guy, because that guy's a machine.
Yes.
And he writes with everybody, and he writes all over the world.
Does.
So we started, kind of doing that. And he, from the very beginning, which was, I guess, 2008, 2009, around that time, he was telling me, we got to make the Cal record. He was always saying that. It was like his mantra every time we met. Come on, we got to make the Cal record. I said, well, I don't have a lot of stuff right now. And then it went on like this for a couple of years before we actually started. I think it was 5 years later, we actually started to talk about beginning the record. And when we started to begin it, we actually weren't doing the record that we ended up doing. We were going to do my alt country album composition that I kind of strung together, these 14 Wilco sounding tight songs. It was kind of like Zip on, Zip 202, it went to another level.
Yeah.
But then listening to a lot of Todd's influence and stuff, I said, Todd, I have another record in me that's, it's more you, and therefore it'll be more me, because you'll get what I'm trying to do. And he did. And so that's when we started working on the record that we're currently finishing up now. Todd and I hit it off right from the get-go. But if he didn't, like I said, just keep hounding me with when are we going to do the Cal record, again, I probably wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have started it. So. Oh,
fantastic. We're going to play, we're going to finish up with a clip of one more song from the Weight of Early Promise. Before that, though, I found a couple of clips of you two playing Jam and Java about 10 years ago. There was one song that I loved that I wanted to play a clip of, Communication. Where did that come from?
Communication, it was written, it was probably the midway point, little after the Doctors. The Doctors actually did, when I said we went back into the studio and we did some noodling around recordings, that was one of the songs we recorded.
Wow.
But it wasn't the way I wrote the song. It became this techno funk, all synthesizer, drum machine driven thing. It was very energetic and I liked it, but it wasn't how I wrote it and it wasn't how I originally demoed it. So I went back to that. And again, it's about, everything is relationship based with me. So communication is exactly that. It's about, sometimes it's harder than you think just to be able to talk to somebody and get your point out. So I'm a big fan, I guess, or just one of my things, my go-tos, as Todd calls it. He goes, a lot of your songs are lists. You list things, your lyrics become lists of things that are metaphors. I said, yeah, I'm guilty as charged, I guess. Waiting for a Change was one of those. It kind of lists things that were happening at the time. This song, Communication, is the same thing. It kind of starts out with almost a rhyming dictionary version of every word that can be used for communicating. Different ways you can say it or mean the same thing.
Right.
It evolves a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's basically about relationship and being able to talk to one another. And sometimes that breaks down and sometimes you build it back up.
Yeah, exactly. And I love there's just a thing between the two of you and Todd giving his little embellishments to the song that you wrote. Here's a little bit of that Jam and Java, all of our favorite venues anywhere all the time. Yay, Brindleys. Here's Todd Wright and Cal Everett with a little bit. I think there's Mark Williams is involved with this too as well. Here's a little bit of Communication.
Shoot the band through the head, communication. Shoot the bridge, Peppertine, Collar Creek, communication. It's coming over the phone, it's going out the mail. Beat is going with the phone, rough rail. Baby, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. And I'm talking right, and I am talking right at you. Can I ever get through? Can't she hear me? My lips are moving. Can't she hear me? Maybe we're talking. The words are just dialogue. And there's no communication. No communication. No communication. No communication. Sentiments, communication. Insinuate, mitigate, demonstrate communication. From satellites up in space to eyes under the cloud. A million years since the apes first sound, baby, still ain't got it. I know we ain't got it.
Yeah, you can see the Todd and Cal thing, and I again, having gotten to know him a little, finally meeting him at the Cancer Can Rock thing, it was just so incredible to meet all of these people that I hadn't met before, but I'd interviewed them, like Jenny Langer and Holly Montgomery and Carly Harvey, and I could go on. Just incredible to see you and Todd play that song, and I don't know, there's a thing there. Cal, we've had an amazing ride, and I hope you've enjoyed it, but I want to go out with a little bit of this new music that's coming out. Talk a little bit about Older Now.
Obviously, again, this one I wrote. It's relatively new. It's obviously at least 6 years old because it was the first one we recorded for the record. But I had written it just prior to that. I had the chord progression or something. No, it was the melody. I actually had the melody for this song years before, and it had nonsense lyrics. I would just keep singing the nonsense lyrics so I wouldn't forget the melody. And then as we started, when Todd had pursued doing the record, it all just came to me. It just like literally fell into my head. The lyrics and how I wanted to do it, and the beat part of the song and how I wanted it arranged, and where breakdown parts would be, it just fell. And I just thought, okay, well, that's a sign. We'll do that song first. And it's, you know, it's the paradigm of I write a lot of songs that have to do with what you wanted or expected and what happened instead, which is not bad necessarily. It's just, you know, life presents you choices and you make them and you follow that. I'm not sorry for any choice I made so far. And the great thing is, the inspiring thing to me is opportunities to make new choices keep happening. And I never would have thought it. So I sometimes beat myself up going, damn it, one of these ships has got to be for you. So I still say, I'm going to get a Grammy. I have not left that dream, no matter how old I get. I'm going to get a Grammy, even to the point where I rehearse sometimes at night in my head my acceptance speech.
Beautiful.
And it always starts with the same sentence. When I finally accept this award, whatever it said, my first line is always going to be, I meant to get here a lot sooner.
That's fantastic.
Right.
And you know, it ain't out of the realm. I love it. And ladies and gentlemen, as we've come towards the last stretch of our amazing journey with Cal Everett, this is a piece of a song that is going to be on the Weight of Early Promise, which is a long awaited record with the help of Todd Wright and a little bit of Older Now.
When I was young, I had a lot of time on my hands, thought about things, had dreams, and I made lots of plans. Somehow they all got away from me. And nowadays, I've got a doubt for every hour. My head aches and my stomach's sour. I'm restless and I'm losing power on the staircase to my ivory tower.
Yeah, I think that the wait has been worth it on this Weight of Early Promise. So congratulations with the sound and the wonderful songwriting that is years in the making, and that is fabulous. One thing I loved is that not only is music your forte, there is also a bit of writing, and you have a book coming out, a children's book.
I do. It's what a surprise! I mean, that's a story for another show.
Yeah,
because it was an arduous trail to get there. But yeah, as I've said a couple of times, I'm a big horror movie fan. I'm a big Halloween fan. I love it. I'm that guy in the neighborhood with the crazy yard that everybody's got to go to. Except for now, I live in a condo and I can't do it.
Right.
So I wrote a book kind of in my head over the years, and finally my son came to me a couple of years ago and said, "Look, Dad, do you sort of remember that Halloween thing you were writing?" I said, "Well, yeah." And he goes, "Did you ever write it down?" I said, "No." He goes, "You should probably write that down, before you forget it." Well, I wrote it down. One thing led to another. He got it to a friend of his who was an agent. The agent got it to a publisher. The publisher decided we liked the book, and it just got released on August 1st, and it's being released internationally.
Oh.
I still kind of live in the dream here, going, "Nah, come on, somebody's pulling my leg." But yeah, that was just another kind of one of my bucket list things. Like one of these days, I'm going to publish some kind of book. It's not War and Peace, but doggone it, it's good.
Halloween is coming. That's what matters.
It's right around the corner.
And again, a wonderful piece of the life and journey of Cal Everett. Hey man, I wish you the best of luck with Weight of Early Promise. How that gets out there. Maybe we'll cross paths on another Bandhouse moment.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
I would love to do that. I keep hinting to Ronnie, and I'm like, I'm only up against the greatest musicians in the entire world in this region, but you never know. But thanks so much. I've been wanting to do this with you, and for you to take the time with me. Thanks for taking the time, man.
I love it. I love that you offered the time. Like I said, I'm just going where everything leads.
Well, yeah, and thanks. And you're all, so many of your colleagues, including your brother-in-law, which was an amazing show. We were on this show and they had a blast, and I'm really glad that you took the time with me. Let's keep in close touch as we go along. All right, Cal?
We'll do it. Thanks so much.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Man, that was great. I have been so hoping to spend time like that with Cal Everett. And it's been so long since we've hung out or I've seen him. But again, one of the astonishing entertainers that I knew was going to be singing at that Bowie tribute that they asked me to do. And as we talked about on the show, walking into that first rehearsal going, how am I going to do this? I better not suck. And luckily didn't, worked out wonderfully well. But to have Cal on stage that night, and he did a version of Changes, that was wonderful and just incredible to be talking to him about his musical career. Thank you, Cal Everett. Let's keep in very close touch. Real quick on Living on Music next Monday, August 16th, one of my favorite rock and roll players ever, Willie Nile, joins me on Living on Music. I've interviewed Willie a couple times, hung out with him backstage a couple times. We've kept in touch here and there. I have a dear friend, my college roommate, who's a good buddy of his, Jim Cox, knows Willie well. Willie is going to be on talking about how he dealt with the pandemic pretty incredibly. He found ways to stay positive and energetic, put out a record, has another record coming, just actually released within the last few days, called The Day the Earth Stood Still. And Willie Nile will be joining me on August 16th. On August 23rd, it begins 2 weeks of incredible double shots that I am very excited to do. On the 23rd, I have Allie Handel, who is an incredible solo artist, and guitarist, just a wonderful songwriter, has 2 records coming out. One is a little bit out of her regular genre of kind of blues rock and roll, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. She is also the Joe Perry designated guitarist, but she's Allie Handel in my book, an incredible guitar player, rock guitarist in the Aerosmith all-female tribute band Ragdolls, and we're going to talk about what's going on with Ragdolls and stuff like that. And kind of in a parallel universe, my second guest on the show, Marlene Angelides, is the lead singer in the Led Zeppelin all-female tribute band Les Zeppelin. We're going to talk to Marlene, who's been on the show, like Allie. Allie's also been on the show before. Talk to Marlene about how she's doing, finally coming out of this slowly but surely. I know she created a kind of an alter ego character, Cybella, during the pandemic. We'll talk about how that came to be, and also what it's like to be back out rocking with Steph Paines and Joan and Lisa and the rest of Les Zeppelin. So that's August 23rd with those 2 amazing rockers. And then on August 30th, another double shot, Laura Seguiros, who is a renowned and very influential local musician. Love Laura's stuff. She's been on the show before. We did her life story. On this show, we're going to talk about how she's coming out of this, what she's got. She's got some new music coming out soon. And also the incredible Dave Chappell, who's been on the show, is one of my earliest guests. We're going to talk about the Danny Gatton tribute on September 3rd at the Birchmere, and Dave and an amazing group that always play these kind of things are going to be involved in that. We'll talk about that. And also, again, how Dave's been doing. I know he's been playing with Patty Reese. They've been doing some Blues Alley. He's been doing some Blues Alley stuff with some of his other guys and musicians. So we'll talk to Laura and Dave on August 30th. Why don't you go to the Zebra page right after the show? If you haven't signed up, sign up, get some Zebra information from around the region. You'll love what you get from the Zebra. Also, ZTV on Facebook. There you go, right there. Click like on there, and you'll get pinged on all the shows that we're doing on ZTV. Also, the August edition of the Zebra newspaper is out now. If you want to go find it, it is, again, a wonderful array of information and articles and news on businesses and news on people in the area. And you can get it around town and the number of the boxes that you see all over the streets of Alexandria and beyond. But also, you can go here to thezebra.org, and you can click on the bottom there. You see it right there, down there, subscribe, and you can get, for a very nominal fee, delivered to you every month, the Zebra newspaper. So why don't you do that, because there's nothing like sitting and reading the newspaper. That's old school, but that's me. The Living on Music is a production of the Zebra Press. I want to thank my dear friend, who's been one for 40 some years, a phenomenal musician, producer, music teacher, Todd Jones, and also our new interim editor for the Living on Music show. And it is really, really fun to have Todd along. Thanks, Todd. and we're really excited to have him on board on Living on Music. And the Living on the Zebra Press publisher is Mary Wadland. Well, as we're getting through this and still trying to kind of scrape out of this last year and a half of crap we've had to go through, remember that there's a lot of things you can do that aren't a big lift, and one of them, to no matter who gets this kind of feedback from you, be the good news in someone's life. Take care, everybody.